In the 80s, most arcade games looked like this or this. These were pretty standard around that time. 8-bit graphics were really all that could be done. Until one day in 1983, an innovative, iconic, and stupidly hard game hit the arcades. And this game was known as Dragon's Lair. You played as Dirk the Daring as you tried to save the Princess Daphne from the evil dragon. Can you make it through the castle and make it to the Dragon's Lair? I have no idea because I'm paraphrasing off the Attract video. So as I said before, Dragon's Lair is super hard. It took me around an hour to just beat the game, and that's including the amount of game overs I got. Must have gotten like at least 100. Let's say I was playing on an original arcade cabinet, and they got 100 game overs. Every time I got a game over, I'd have to pay a quarter to continue. So $100 times 25 cents equals 2,500 cents. 2,500 cents in US dollars is $625. Just buy the Dragon's Lair trilogy on Switch. You can play on easy mode, you can choose between the arcade and home versions, and best of all, the filters are optional. I don't understand why so many collections nowadays either automatically have the filters on or you can't turn them off. Just either give me the game in widescreen or just put some black bars on it. Not whatever this is. Anyways, Dragon's Lair is really all about memorization. Memorizing what you're supposed to do on a stage so you can actually beat it instead of doing it over and over and over again. I'm playing on the home version, which is just the entire game in order and you have to actually beat a level to advance. But in the arcade version, every time you die, not counting game overs, it brings you to a random level. So you can't memorize what you're supposed to do unless you shell out $600. Honestly, this game would have worked more as a 3D game, or just a game where you aren't limited to one button. Because there's a lot of situations where having the freedom to do certain things just makes more sense than having one button that you can press at times that just one thing to progress the gameplay. And this kind of gameplay style works sometimes, but a lot of the time it just really doesn't. The game is animated really well though, like Don Bluth does really good in this, but the voice actors don't. This game is pretty infamous for its bad voice acting. Dirk will make some of the funniest noises, especially when you die. And a lot of the time it gets cut off, which makes it even funnier. Anyways, all in all, Dragon's Lair is a difficult but fun game. If you can look past the difficulty, Dragon's Lair is a pretty fun game, albeit with some flaws. 3 out of 5. So obviously, Dragon's Lair was successful. So it was ported to consoles like the NES. 7 years after the fact. Anyways, let's look at the NES port of Dragon's Lair. Don't mind me, just waiting for you to find the irony in that sentence. So the original Dragon's Lair used laser disc technology, and you can't really put that onto an NES cartridge like it's a cartridge, not a laser disc. So here we have a sucky platformer called Dragon's Lair. You start outside the castle, but you can't go inside. No, you have to beat this dragon guy. So the thought process is, you need to duck to attack him to defeat him, right? Wrong. He goes under the bridge whenever you duck. You actually need to go over here and then attack him while ducking to avoid his attacks. I barely even made it through using rewinds and save states on an emulator. Once you're inside, you're in a jail? I think that's what it is. These guys are throwing yarn at you. The yarn kills you. Yada yada yada, you make it through the level, and then you have this boss. It's not even a boss, it's a bunch of snakes. And this boss took me 15 minutes. Why? Because these snakes, they throw yarn. That kills you. So after you beat this boss, you get onto this floating platform, which I'm pretty sure is supposed to be like this part from the original Dragon's Lair. I decided to get off at this part, and... Are you kidding me? 0 to 5. So later on in 1990, the first real sequel to the original Dragon's Lair came out. Dragon's Lair 2, Time Warp. Time Wrap?
Warp.
Okay, it's Warp. Time Warp. And I do not like this game. Why? Because it has a shorter amount of scenes, but the scenes are longer in length. And that brings up a problem. How? Here is the end of the second stage. you can die at the end of the stage. How? And do you know where you go when you die at the end of the stage? Right back at the beginning. I played for 30 minutes, and in those 30 minutes, I got to the second stage. And I couldn't even beat it. And that, kids, is why you don't put an easy mode in one game, and then in the game's sequel, you don't put an easy mode. When in fact, the sequel is harder. Anyways, on to the Game Boy game. This is Dragon's Lair The Legend. It's not fun. It's very boring. It's not hard. It's just boring. And also, if you have epilepsy, then either cover your eyes, click off the video, or skip ahead to this time frame. I'm not sure what these collectibles do, but a lot of the time they really just get in the way of the actual gameplay. I don't like this game. Anyways, after Dragon's Lair The Legend release, there wasn't any Dragon's Lair content until 2002, when Dragon's Lair 3D returned to the Lair released. This is a remake of the original Dragon's Lair that's in 3D. It has a lot more content than the original and honestly deserves its own video, so I'll make a video on it in the future. And with that, we come to the end of the Dragon's Lair series. There hasn't been any Dragon's Lair content outside of re-releases since 2002, but they are making a Dragon's Lair movie. But what's the fun in watching Dragon's Lair if you can't interact with it?